In this video, we're going to go over the build section of the rigging tool set. So once you've completed your layout, or once you're at a place where you want to start building the rig off of your layout, you save your layout and you switch over to the build tab here. And now this build tab is your step-by-step list of functions that will be run in order to go from an empty scene to building your finished final rig with model and deformers and all of the bells and whistles hooked up. After you run this, you will have your final rig that you're able to publish out and release for production. So let's go over what you can do with this. So every time you create a new asset, you're going to get a default build list, which is this right here. It's going to have things in it like new file, load your new file, load your layout, build your skeleton from your layout, custom code. Anything that in the build list that is blue is coming from your custom Python file that is specific to this asset only. So you can do any kind of custom coding here, and these are just empty placeholders for custom code that will not affect any other rig, only this asset that you're currently working on. So you build your layout, you build your skeleton from your layout, run some custom code, build your control rig. This is where this magic happens. More custom code, then it'll connect the parents, connect the attributes, load spaces, build spaces, add selection sets for pick walking and so on. Import your model. Then this is loading all of your custom attributes, blend shapes, pose interpolators, nonlinear deformers, skin clusters, all of your other deformers, any constraints, matrix constraints, connection set driven keys, and then change your deformation order based if you have exported any of that stuff. Then there is another placeholder for more custom code. Then you have the finish section where it will load any values that you may have set, like turn FK on by default or off, for example. Lock the hierarchy so that the rig is nice and clean and animators can't break anything. Lock and set keyable attributes, reparent constraints from the joints group so that you have a clean single hierarchy skeleton that has nothing but joints in it. So this is required for when you want to bake and export things out to a game engine, for example. You won't have all of those extra like constraint nodes and junk nodes that are floating around in the skeleton rig. You'll just have a clean skeleton. Create a mocap bake skeleton, which this is required if you have to just check this on if you are building something that you expect to apply mocap data to and use the mocap tool for, which is still in development. This will remove the layout from your scene, set historical importance, set visibility so that your model is locked off and stuff like that, unselectable and so on. And this is the default build list, but if you hit this little edit button, you can drag steps around. Let's say I want to have my skin clusters imported after clusters, or blend shapes after skin clusters. Or let's say I just want to remove this build step and that build step. Or if you want to add a new label, you can add a new label and just type whatever you want the name of it to be and then drag it to where you need it. Then you can add a new build step. So you can specify if it's Python or Mel. I recommend just sticking with Python. The label, so this is my new step. The label is what you will see here in the list. Import code. Import foo. Let's say that's the name of my module. And then the command, so foo dot do something. And then you can add that new build step. So if I save this, it's going to modify my build list. So I don't want to save it right now. If you want to revert the build list, you can just say revert and you go back. If you click this save button, it will save your new build list. So something that it won't actually hurt right now, let's let's get rid of deformation order. So we're going to remove deformation order and save it. Now this is your new build list according to whatever you modified. So once your build list is set up, another thing that you have up here in the settings menu, you can specify which models and which layout to load. Now, both of these were covered in the layout video, so if you haven't seen that, please check that out. Then you have a path to your build list. This entire build list is one big JSON file that is stored on disk, and that is the path for it. So now that we've gone over the build list, how do we get it to build? So you have a few different options. You can right click and let's say I want to build only up to my model file, only up to my model import. You can right click and say build up to selected. Now, if this is the very first time you're building your rig and you don't have any deformers yet, this is the spot that I recommend building up to and then stopping here. Because now you have your completed rig, but your model is not hooked up. So now from here, you can start binding and constraining your model however you wish. Just old school, Maya, skin cluster bind, parent constraints, matrix constraints, and so on. So once you have constrained and bound your model to your liking, then you go over to the export tab, which we'll get into in the next video. You'll export all of your deformers and blend shapes and skin clusters and so on, and set your keys and whatever you want, and then that will automatically load back in the next time. So another way you can build is you can say build the selected step that you have highlighted. So you can build one step at a time. You can also build in sequence. So if you click down here, build next step, it'll load the next step. Load your pose interpolators, load nonlinears, skin clusters, and so on. As you saw that it just turned orange, while it's building, it will be orange. And then if something errors out, it'll just turn red, tell you there's an error. And if you look at the script editor, it will give you a little bit more feedback on why is it erroring. Is it an import error? Is there a node missing in the scene? Things like that. So then another thing that you can do is just say build all my steps. So it will just build from wherever you are to the end of the list. Another thing, and then this is your completed rig, complete with deformers and all that good stuff. So another thing is you can right click on the build next step and restart the build and run your first step and then continue with a new build. Or if you right click over build all steps, you can rebuild all from scratch from start to finish. So this is what I recommend doing if you have a model update where the model, nothing is changed in the model and you only have UV changes. You want to get the new model in there as quickly as possible and build the same exact rig. This is the button I recommend you use. Rebuild all steps. It'll grab the latest model that's been published, apply all of your deformers and so on, and now you have a brand new clean rig with the latest model. So that is the build tab.